1. Well, folks, my faith in humanity has fallen just a little more today. Some people just have absolutely no clue on how to behave in society. This morning, I'm out and about picking up breakfast for the missus and myself. She prefers Taco Bell. I prefer Carl's Jr. Monster biscuits are amazing. I pull into the Taco Bell drive-thru, and as I'm ordering, another car pulls up behind me and just starts blaring their horn. I'm trying to finish up, but this woman just doesn't stop. All the while she's screaming out the window that I'm a terrorist and a communist. I'm your average Caucasian white male, so not the usual group that women like her usually accuse of that nonsense. And I have no idea why she's screaming these things. I pull forward to the pickup window. Karen is still screaming at me, but has given up on honking. Maybe she annoyed herself with it. The employee asks if I know this person. I do not. She hands me a bag and I leave the drive-thru. Karen follows me out. So I pull up to the exit and make like I'm going to turn right. But at the last second I pull a left, and now she's stuck at the stop sign waiting for her turn. I continue down the street, make a quick ride into a bank lot, and wait there for a few minutes hoping she gave up. After about 2 minutes and she is nowhere to be seen, I decide she went on about her day, and I continue down the street. A couple of blocks past the Taco Bell is my breakfast stop, Carl's Jr. I pull into the drive-thru. I had already ordered online for pickup, points equals free food, and am asked to park while they wait for the fresh tater tots and French toast sticks. As I pull into my usual parking spot, the Karen returns. She has spotted me and decides to peel into the parking lot and parked right next to me. I roll up my window as she approaches, and she starts screaming at me again. How I am an imperial communist and that I need to go back to my own country, that I'm a terrorist. I think she assumed I was Russian, I don't know. The manager of the Carl's comes out to give me my food. I'm an almost daily regular here, so we shoot the breeze for a few minutes, and sees Karen going off on me. She asks her what the problem is. The Karen rants to her the same thing she's been ranting at me the few moments she's been there. I roll my window down to get my food. At least she didn't try to take that, and tell the Karen. What in the hell are you talking about? I'm not a terrorist. I've lived in the USA all my life, and I've no idea what the hell you're on about. And then she explains herself.
Well, what about all these communist stickers all over your car? What's that Arab language say, huh?
And then it hits me. I'm a Star Wars nut. I drive a 2019 Chevrolet Bolt, and it greatly resembles a Stormtrooper helmet, so I have the Imperial logo on the tailgate. The Empire doesn't care about your stick figure family decal with a TIE fighter and an AT-AT walker, or AT-AT, don't shoot me, blowing up some stick figures and some Arabesh Star Wars galactic basic text that reads, "Honk, if you can read this." I quickly explained to her that I'm not a terrorist. This is all Star Wars stuff, including the Star Wars writing. It's not any language on this planet or in this galaxy, let me assure you. Thankfully, she realized her mistake really quickly. She sputters out a quick,
"Oh, sorry,"
jumps back in her car and drives away. Thankfully, that was the end of it. Some people, I swear. I'm not going to have political messages on my car. That's a good way to get it vandalized. 2. So this happened about 15 years ago, and I thought it would be nice to share. I had a childhood friend, Steve, 28 at the time, go through a really bad breakup with the girl he had been dating for multiple years. He eventually started dating an 18-year-old girl, Kate, as a rebound that he met at a party. Kate was an enormous mooch. She was always asking for handouts and never had a job as long as I knew her. Steve had gotten a DUI in his early 20s, and he had his license taken away as a result. I don't know the details or the semantics of how it works, as I've never had a DUI, and never cared to look up how it worked. Steve was driving someone else's car when he got the DUI. He didn't have a car himself. So after the DUI, he never tried to get his license stuff fixed or anything, so that he could drive himself. He had his ex drive him everywhere when they were together. About a month after his breakup, his mother passed away. I started spending a lot more time with him because of this awful event. Not that we weren't hanging out before, but it increased after this. And I offered to drive him around wherever he wanted to go. This went on for months, almost an entire year. It got to the point where I got tired of driving him and allowed Kate to drive him if he wanted to go somewhere. This went on for anywhere between 6 to 8 months. He was taking the bus to work at this time, but I ended up dating one of Kate's roommates. She was close to my age, and I started just sleeping at their place, and so did Steve. He usually got up for work 2 hours before I did, so I would let Kate drive him to work and bring my car back so I could go to work after. Except one morning, for some reason, he set his alarm way later than he usually did. I heard it go off not long before I was getting up to get ready for work. He told me he has enough time to make it to work on time and to get the car back to me. I took it in stride and trusted that he was right. So I wait for Kate to get back. My girl at the time had to work about 30 minutes earlier than I did, so she had already left for work. So time ticks down. I'm texting Steve and Kate and not getting any replies. It took about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic, to get to my job from my girl's house. About 10 minutes before my shift starts at work, Kate waltzes in with a Burger King bag. She tells me something about the drive-thru taking too long or something. No apologies for being late. Of course, it took close to an hour to get to work. I called my boss beforehand and told them the situation, and they weren't happy. I got a written warning at my job because I was so late. I think my boss wanted to give me a formal write-up. She really didn't like me. Steve later texted me a really lame apology, something like, "Sorry you were late, but there was enough time for you to make it if you would have hurried." So I told Steve the next time I saw him that Kate was no longer driving my car, and I'm not being his taxi anymore. He flew off the handle at this. He started saying stuff like how I legally couldn't deny him a ride anywhere because he has a DUI in his record, how he had just as much right to use my car as I did. His name was not anywhere in my car, and he never made any payments for me or anything like that. So I had no idea where he was coming from on that one. He barely paid me gas money sometimes, and then he started using his mom passing as an excuse. Now, I was very sympathetic about the whole situation, and was there when he needed to talk, or needed a ride, or just generally when he needed a friend. So I was insulted that he even brought her into this equation. So we stopped talking. Years later we reconciled, but we weren't as close as we were before. He ended up getting married, not to Kate. Apparently that relationship ended horribly. I hung out with him a few times, and then COVID hit, and I didn't really see much of anyone. My dad passed away earlier this year, and I got a message on social media from his wife that was like, "Sorry about your dad," but never anything from him. I guess he didn't have to say anything, but it would have been nice since I was there for him, and he knew my dad very well. 3. I've been with Walmart for almost 3 years now. I had an incident when I first started working there, where a creep found my social media from my name tag. After that, I changed my name tag to a different and traditionally male name. I'm non-binary, but still dress and look feminine, so my preferred name often brings up a lot of questions. They come mainly from the older folks. I heard a lot of, "Your parents named you that," and "Is your name short for something?" Think my name tag being Dan, which is usually short for Daniel. Just an example of why people think my name on my tag is short for something. A few weeks ago, I had transferred to a new store, and the questions about my name started rolling in. Usually people accept that it's just a nickname, but I've had a few pushy people, this woman being the worst. She came into the store and asked for help finding an item. I was the only one in my department at this time, so I gladly helped her. She was maybe in her 50s or 60s, so the prime age to get asked about my name tag. I went through the usual, that it was just a nickname, and yes, my parents gave me a boy name. That is a lie. But I live in a very religious area, so I'm not comfortable telling people I'm non-binary. She just didn't seem happy with my answers, and kept demanding that I tell her my real name, so she can address me properly, or something. I kept saying that what she sees on the name tag is in fact my name. Eventually, she moves on and I go about my day. I get the next 3 days off work, and when I come back, my manager asks if I had issues with an older lady when I last worked. I had forgotten about her and said I didn't recall. Then he described how she had come into the store demanding a manager. She went off on some other department's manager about how some kid with dyed hair was lying about her name and needed to get punished for it. Something, wrath of God, blah blah blah. I'm one of the few people with dyed hair in the store, and after pressing for more details from the lady, the managers found out she was talking about me. They said they didn't ban her from the store or anything, but that I could refuse her service and find someone else if she ever comes back to target me. My manager shared a quote from her. I don't remember it exactly, but it went along the lines of, "Customers deserve to know the names of the people they are paying to work for them." 4. I used to work IT support for a fairly small company of around 80 to 100 users. The company was located in Fort McMurray, Alberta, and dealt primarily with radio rentals for companies on the Syncrude and Suncor sites. Because of the small volume of tickets, we also did work for contract companies that needed techs to do warranty work for things like Dell, Bell, Lexmark, Xerox, etc. This one day, we get an email with a request from Bell to do a line upgrade at a police station in Turner Lake, Saskatchewan. I've never heard of the place and had to look it up. I emailed the contracting company and they insisted they got the right depot, as we were the closest geographically to the customer. Turns out we're roughly on the same latitude, and about the same distance from the Alberta-Saskatchewan border on each side of it. Plotting a course to it, however, involved taking an ice road, which wasn't frozen over at this time of year. Otherwise, it was a 12-hour trip one way down to Edmonton, across the border, then north again to Turner Lake. There was a significant safety issue here, as I would have to go alone, and I don't believe there were any accommodations in the small town for an overnight trip. The safety officers said no to the drive, but decided to arrange a flight for me instead. He booked a helicopter charter from Fort McMurray to Turner Lake. Phoenix Heliflight was the company, with jet-black helicopters and orange-red Phoenix burrs painted on the side. Great company to fly with. I didn't want to think about the bill. Granted, the cost would be charged to the contractor company, which then would be passed to Bell, but I digress. So instead of a 12-hour drive, it was a leisurely 45-minute flight by heli. First time ever on a helicopter, and I will never forget the experience. My manager had to get in on the trip and came along, one sitting in the front with a full 180-degree view, the other in the back and switching places on the way home. The whole trip to another province took merely the morning, and we were back in the office. But the ironic part of the story happens at the customer's site. We ended up landing in their hockey arena parking lot, as it's the only place big enough. With snow all over the ground and kicking up high in the air, it's safe to say we attracted quite a bit of attention in the small town. An officer picked us up in his truck and literally drove us to the station, a converted mobile trailer just down the road. My job, remember, was to upgrade their internet line by flipping a few switches on the back of their router and have Bell direct me on which ones. They would then do a test to make sure it's all good, then I can leave. So we arrived. There was a tech already there from SaskTel, pulling cables and whatnot, and taking up all the room in the small data closet that held the networking gear. I waited for him to finish while my manager chatted up the officer about the flight. I watched him as he connected cables, hooked up a switch, then grabbed the modem and started flipping switches on the back. "Wait, what are you doing?" I asked. "Oh, I have this work order from Bell to upgrade their internet line," he says, showing me his paperwork. I pull out mine, and sure enough, it's exactly the same job. He finishes in the closet, calls Bell to test the line, and all is good, so he leaves. I did nothing. I call Bell, they test the line, all is good.
"Yeah, the upgrade looks good, you can take off now,"
the rep says. Funny you should word it like that, I laugh. I explained about where I came from and how we took a heli to get there, only to find a Sasktel tech had done the job for me. A manager was put on the phone. I repeat the story. He's pissed, but not at me, as I was just doing my job.
"I'm going to have a talk to dispatch about spending unneeded money,"
he says through gritted teeth.
"Thanks for your time. Have a safe flight home."
I didn't even have to open a tool bag. We got board the officer's truck back to the helicopter, and then I take the front on the way back. Like I said, we left at 7 a.m., and were back in the office by noon. 5. My very first serious job, nearly 2 decades ago, was doing customer training and tech support for a company managing a national golf handicap system. This meant supporting golf club staff telephonically and on site who, let's just say, weren't the most tech-savvy themselves. A lot of my days were spent running through the standard, "Is the green light on the server box on? And is the phone line plugged in?" Great. Now, connect to us. Can you hear the dial tone? To answer the oblivious yes, this was in the eons before wireless, where they connected to the network via a hard phone line, which was sometimes an all-in-one phone line, fax line, server line that they plugged from one piece of equipment to the next. Bear with me, please, while I set the scene for this extraordinary tale. We had this one club, not remote enough that it meant you were out of touch with civility, but far enough outside a major support center that it meant that site visits entailed a plane trip, a few hours by rental car, and a guaranteed stayover before returning. Needless to say, it was a fairly prestigious setup, with an estate and some high-profile members attached, what you might call a profile client, and so the staff were not afraid to stamp their feet when things went wrong. Now, on and off, the company had been having continuous issues with this site. The server never seems to connect on schedule. The handicaps are always out of sync or take a few days to fetch and send, and the terminal is often on the blink. The staff are telling the members, visitors, and club board that the stupid system doesn't work, and some high-level conversations about kicking the whole thing out are in play. It's typically outside of my rotation area, but the bosses throw bodies at the bottom, and so I am assigned to assist. Eventually, after a few months of baffling back and forth, the company decides to hell with spending any more money troubleshooting. They're sending brand new terminals, and we're redoing the install. After about 6 hours travel time, I arrive on site in 95 Fahrenheit or 35 centigrade weather, which feels like 115 or 40 plus, due to the 98% humidity, and I head straight to the pro shop to check that all the new equipment has arrived. It's sitting neatly stacked and ready to unbox. So I immediately get to work unpacking the towers, screens, dumb terminals, network cables, etc. I spend the next few hours well into the evening on the phone with our techs at head office, whilst we set up the handicap terminal and various pro shop point-of-sale terminals, routing everything, replacing all the network cables, and testing dial-ups to and from the server network. Everything is perfect. All works as expected, and we all collectively breathe a sigh of relief. I pop into the bar and restaurant where the manager has been firmly planted since 5:01 p.m., and confirm all is a go for tomorrow morning's first check-ins, and then head to the on-site cottage provided as accommodation. I'm bushed, but needless to say, I'm pretty darn chuffed with myself. The next morning, I walk into the pro shop, still smug with my success the night before, and I am greeted with surly comments, ranting and grumbles about this stupid system that's always on the blink, even right after they've just replaced it. I do a double take. The tower for the handicap terminal is off, or more accurately, has no power. The screen is on, but nobody's home. So I do what every person who's ever been on first-line support does. I open the cupboard under the terminal and check the wall sockets and power cables. And what do you know, the screen is plugged in, but the tower is not. There, on the felted interior of the well-polished computer cabinet, lies the unplugged cable. So trained as I am in the fine art of customer diplomacy, I put on the sweetest smile I can muster, and turned to ask the lippy and rather arrogant pro-shop manager, who unplugged the handicap terminal this morning. To which he curtly replies, "Nobody's touched it since we opened at 6 a.m. I call the manager in, who confirms all was working last night when I left, and now we have a proper mystery on our hands. After an arduous period of denials and finger-pointing, and threats to check the cameras on the estate, they eventually call in the only other person to set foot in the pro-shop before the golfers did, the lady who cleans before opening, and lo and behold, the mystery is solved. You see, this dear sweet lady had been fastidiously vacuuming the pro-shop every morning since the estate had opened. And even though she had been told not to use the plug that the terminal was connected to, her English was not impeccable and the importance didn't really hit home. Plus, sometimes she found it easier to use that one plug, rather than move her vacuum's plug multiple times around the room. And the sweet ducky was getting on in years, so she sometimes forgot to plug the computer back in, after she had finished for the morning. The next day or so, she'd obviously realized her mistake and just plugged back in, not telling anyone because, well, how important could it be, right? And every time we tried to troubleshoot telephonically with the client, asking them if they were sure everything was plugged in, well, it seems it was either a case of, "Well, it was working yesterday, I don't know why," or, "Of course it's plugged in, nobody even opens the cupboard," without them actually having checked. But hey, at least we know the carpet's clean. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 133. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do poke the like button. And if you'd like to get these videos a little bit earlier, then you can do so by supporting me through Patreon, where I post all the videos at the start of the week, all at once. And you'll find the link to that in the description. You'll also find a link to the Hellfreezer Teespring store, where you can buy Hellfreezer merchandise. And you can also make donations during streams or videos just like this one, by clicking that little heart $sign button. While you don't have to do this, it's very much appreciated, and it helps me pay some bills. Alright, let's see, nothing else today, I don't think? Nope, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, do you pronounce it duct tape or duct tape? I ask this only because I had to buy a fresh roll of it recently. I had to pack up a box. I found it as good as packing tape. The last roll literally lasted me for years, and that was only like half a roll. I call it duct tape because that's what it's called, but other options are available, and I'm not going to make fun of you if you pronounce it differently. So do let me know what you think in a comment below. Which do you prefer? And I look forward to reading your answers. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.